Welcome, travelers, adventurers, and curious passersby. Today I'm going to tell you a tale of a most venomous villainess. A story marked by ancient drawings upon a cavern wall of how a simple woman became a voracious, powerful, insatiable, ever-growing, unstoppable goddess. Today, I'm going to tell you the tale of Vexoria, the Sun Eater. Vexoria was born to an unremarkable life in another time upon another world. Born daughter to a pair of laborers, she was raised in service of a cruel overlord. As Vexoria grew into adulthood, the overlord saw the beauty she had become and sought to acquire her hand in marriage. Or at least coax her to his bedroom. Vexoria, however, wanted nothing to do with the overlord. She denied him time and time again, like the stubborn, prideful woman she was. Each time, his rage grew wider. And each time, the punishments grew crueler. Each time, Vexoria's desire for vengeance consumed more and more of her being. One day, the punishment became too much. After being forced to run behind the overlord's cart for miles in bare feet and serve dinner to his distinguished guests, Vexoria was given an ultimatum: marriage or suffer. If she accepted his hand, then she would be given food, clean clothes, and bathed. If she refused, she would be tortured and returned to work under the baking sun until she died. The wheels began to turn inside the cunning mind of that beautiful young woman. The laborers spoke of an ancient temple in the jungle that was said to bestow powers upon anyone brave and resilient enough to survive its depths. Vexoria's mind was now set on the power that temple may contain, but she needed strength to get there.
Yes.
Vexoria replied without skipping a beat. While everyone else heard that she had finally accepted his hand in marriage, Vexoria knew it more as an assent to herself. Yes, she had the resolve to finally take her revenge. She was gifted a queenly headdress and took her seat next to him at the feast. She ate more than any other at the table, enjoying food and drink far more plentiful than she'd ever seen in her lifetime. Then, after a night of services for her new husband-to-be, she fled his palace towards the temple. Vexoria fled under cover of night into the jungle. There, she found the ruins of an ancient temple to a forgotten god. It was said that nobody who ever entered returned. But Vexoria burned with renewed determination. She would either die in this temple or seize its power for herself and take her revenge. Before her lay a tablet with symbols alien to her eyes. She laid her hand upon it, and as she did, a voice spoke a dire warning about what lay within.
Only the most worthy of the worthy may enter the tomb of the snake god. Within lies death, a fang and poison, a dreadful venom that will fill the mind with all the desires one could seek in a finite mortal existence. Only one whose greed, desire, and hunger eclipse that of the sun itself may look upon his final resting place. To gorge upon his power, one must feed the venom of his children to one's blood. With power comes strength unchallenged, beauty unrivaled, greed unparalleled, hunger insatiable. Walk the path of desire and deny it with every step. Only then shall you be deemed worthy.
Vexoria descended into the temple. There she found darkness and the constant sound of countless snakes hissing around her. There, either by some divine intervention, or perhaps due to the venomous snakes biting at her heels, Vexoria experienced 4 visions. Each one promised her a better life. To settle down with a slave she'd long loved and have a family was the first. Vexoria pushed past it.
No. I want more. I need more.
Next, the visions promised her that she would successfully overthrow the Overlord and take his palace. Heaps of gold and food were placed at her feet. Vexoria hesitated for only a moment. She had been tormented by this man for her entire life, and now she had a chance to settle down and become him. Take from him all he had. But she had been tormented too long. His domain was no longer enough. She wanted more.
His lands are no longer enough for me. He kept me starved for years, and now I hunger for more than food.
As a final temptation, the vision then showed her an image of her becoming empress of the known world. Heaps of gold were all around her. People bowed in reverence of her. She sat upon a throne and was loved. Vexoria was far more tempted for this than the Overlord's domain. But the vision had now shown her that more was possible. Her imagination opened up, and the thought of people bowing to her and worshipping her filled her mind. She wanted to hold that empire in her hands. And so, dark thoughts began to fill her mind.
Empress is not nearly enough. I want to become a goddess. I want to make my every desire a reality. I want them all to be free. I want to be worshipped. I want to be unstoppable.
Vexoria pushed through that last vision and found herself at an ancient altar covered in stone snakes. Upon that altar, her vision began to blur. Before her rose an ancient, long-banished god in the form of a great towering man with a snake for a head.
I can grant you the powers you desire, little one, but they come at a cost. Love will not hold you, for you will always seek the arms of another. Meals shall not sate you, as you will always crave the next feast. Treasures shall not please you, for you will always demand greater tribute. Your homes shall never hold you, as you will outgrow them in search of greater size and power. If you accept this curse, then I shall give you the power to take all that you desire.
Vexoria was not one to be deterred by the prospect of having too much of anything. The curse sounded more like a blessing to her.
I accept. I will take many lovers and I will feast upon everything. I will collect every treasure and I will outgrow this world. Make me into a goddess. Let me take my revenge. Let them see the wonder that I am. Tell me what I must do.
The god was pleased at Vexoria's greed. He agreed to surrender the last of his powers to give her the strength to defeat the Overlord. Beyond that, achieving true divinity would be her own task.
You shall devour all that is left of me, little one. My divine spark will live on through you, and you shall become divine in turn. But know this, Vexoria, you are not invincible. I was once powerful, ruling over an entire world of minuscule little worshippers. Beneath my notice, I basked in my power, and let my ambitions die. The sun gives us warmth, but it also is a great power. And my would-be worshippers use that power to banish me here, sap my strength, and seal me away for untold centuries. Beware the sun, Vexoria.
But Vexoria was not deterred. In fact, she was emboldened.
Then I will outgrow and devour this little planet so no one can turn against me. And then I will eat the sun itself. I will devour everything.
Vexoria devoured the spark of the banished god as she was bidden. Her world turned to darkness, and she awoke many hours, or perhaps days, later. There, she found her form had been changed. Her legs were gone, replaced with a tail as black as the night sky. Her eyes glowed a bright golden color. She was much larger now, standing at 8 feet tall, and 16 feet tall when her form was stretched from head to tip. After taking a moment to adapt to her new shape and admire what she had become, Vexoria set upon the village. What ensued was a bloodbath for the Overlord's men.
This power. I can do anything. Nothing can stop me. These puny spears are nothing compared to my might. Die, all of you, die!
Vexoria found the Overlord. He begged for his life when none of his guards could stop her. Their weapons could not pierce her scales, and she moved far too quickly for them to defend themselves from her. She retrieved the Overlord, and, as the slaves rebelled against their captors below, she dangled the man from the balcony, letting him plunge to his death below. She had won, and now her rule began.
The Overlord is dead. We are free, my brothers and sisters. Come, let us feast on all that has been denied to us for too many long years.
Vexoria could have freed the slaves that day, but Vexoria was a dark and covetous woman. While she would not preside utter cruelty over them like the Overlord had, in her mind, all these people very much belonged to her. They were her possessions now. But she did treat them well to begin with. The first night, they raided the larders of the Overlord's palace. She and her former companions feasted all night. Vexoria ate as much as the rest of them combined, however, and took many lovers to her bedside. When morning came, everyone returned to work.
Everyone except me, darling.
Weeks went by. Each night, Vexoria ate even more. She took even more lovers. Slowly, their supplies dwindled. Vexoria, however, did much the opposite. Her body began to grow from the worship and food she was given. She basked in her new size, and demanded more food from her people. She cemented her place as a goddess, and demanded she be served as such. Her former allies had now become her worshippers, whether they had wished it be so or not.
Bring me tribute, my pets. More food, more lovers. I hunger so very much. Bring me everything until you have nothing left to give but yourselves. Worship your new goddess.
Weeks turned into months. Vexoria quickly began to outgrow her palace, and so she sought more worshippers to build her a throne devoted to her growing body. Soon, however, food started to become scarce. When a worshipper turned up to tell Vexoria that there was nothing left to give her to eat in tribute, she simply wrapped her hands around the little man, drew him beyond her lips, and swallowed.
Delicious. A fitting sacrifice to a goddess. I want more. Surrender yourselves. Make me bigger.
And so became the first sacrifice. Vexoria would demand more sacrifices from the village from that day on. Vexoria's growth continued unabated. Eventually, word of her existence reached the farthest kingdoms. Plans of an army to stop her were drawn up. But in her village, a different kind of rebellion had risen up. In fear of being eaten, the townsfolk began to hide in their houses and refused to offer themselves as sacrifices. But Vexoria had grown to the point where their homes were small enough to eat now. At that size, everything begins to look tasty. In hours, she devoured every last building that once stood in her home village. She basked in the flattened nothingness, resting her hand over a stomach that digested the last domicile.
I hope the next village is either more loyal or just as tasty. Did that last house make my tits look bigger? Or is it just me?
And so, from village to village, Vexoria traveled. She snacked on forests, buildings, and travelers alike. In each village, she demanded worship and sacrifices. Those who surrendered were spared to serve her, and those who did not were devoured and fed her growth. In time, Vexoria could fit whole villages in her mouth. So when the gathered forces of the world's armies arrived to stop her, she merely delighted at the feast before her.
You all look so delicious. Mommy's hungry. Don't bother running.
Vexoria made a quick meal of the army. Then she sent her most devout worshippers to the kingdoms of the world. They were to surrender and make her their sole ruler and goddess. And they were to prepare food, toys, and sacrifices to keep her insatiable needs in check. The first kingdom denied her. Vexoria feasted upon it as a lesson to all the others.
Love me, obey me, praise me, feed me, desire me, worship me. Or you'll all just end up as another little snack.
A year went by from the day that Vexoria had become a goddess. Soon, the entire world surrendered to her. She spent days reshaping the terrain to her whims, playing with her new worshippers and feasting. Slowly, she continued to grow, but she had not forgotten the god's warning to her. Beware the sun. During the daytime, she basked in its warmth, but at night it disappeared, taking its warmth with it. Vexoria did not like that the sun had power over her. She didn't like being cold. When she was cold, she slept, and when she slept, she feared she was vulnerable.
I will devour the sun, and then I shall always be warm. Nothing will ever stop me again. I will become all-powerful, a true goddess. But to do that, I need to be bigger. Let the feast begin.
As weeks began to pass, Vexoria's meals grew. Villages weren't enough to sate her, so she turned to eating cities whole. She snacked on forests and mountainsides. She swallowed lakes and rivers to slake her thirst. Bigger and bigger she grew, while Vex reached for greater heights, wrapping her fingers around one of the planet's 2 moons. Unrest unfolded beneath her. The magically inclined of the remaining people of the world drew upon the power of the sun and blocked it away, plunging the planet into an ice age. As Vexoria swallowed the moon whole, pleased with her increasing size, a deep cold began to wash over her.
So delicious. I'm growing again, too. Wait. What's this? What's happening to the sun? No! No! I'm not big enough yet! There's so much left to devour! Your cities, your continents, every last one of you! I must. Tired. So cold. I don't want to sleep.
Her old world plunged itself into an ice age, blocking out the sun and trapping the world in darkness in order to defeat Vexoria. Stopped before she could devour the sun itself, Vexoria fell into a deep slumber and shrank with her dwindling power. In time, the people figured out how to seal her away, trap her in a temple, turn her body to stone, and banish that temple to another world. Our world. Vexoria's power would gradually wane over thousands of years until one day, someone was foolish enough to venture into her temple and bring her statue into the light once more.
Is that the sun? Oh, I'm so stiff. Who are you? No matter. You will serve me as my loyal cultist now. Free me from this place, and I shall reward you.
Now, Vexoria has awakened once more, and this time, she won't allow anything to stop her before she devours the sun. Given a second chance and a new reality to adapt to, she's turned to us, seeking worship and adoration, praise and loyalty, and, of course, sacrifices, in order to make her grow. This time, the world will thank her as she seals her lips around us. This time, nothing will stop her great ascension. This time, nothing will stop Vexoria, the Sun Eater.
Hello, darlings. I'm here. Come, lavish praise upon your new goddess. Worship me, for I am Vexoria, the Sun Eater, and one day I'm going to make all of you a part of me.